Well now, ladies and gents, dimes and dappers, gather round the wireless and lend me your ears. You've turned into the broadcast where shadows stretch long and the tales run deeper than a speakeasy tab on payday. Tonight's program promised a fine blend of chills, thrills, and tales that tickle the spine just right. Whether you're a seasoned sleuth or just stumbled in from the fog, you're right on time, so hang up your hat, pour yourself a stiff one, and settle in close. The night's just begun and the story's begging to be told. Now, we are going to start off with some. First off, I had some friends from the other side tell me that there's something I should try to make the stories that are told these nights a little more creepy, a little more scarier, per se. And I think I want to try to give that a shot. So I hope you guys can hang in there and enjoy our normal tales of tonight. Now, we are going to start off with from another anonymous, but something about the Jersey Devil again. Now, let's jump right into it. They told me the pine barrens are haunted, that they stretch on forever, choking out the sky, swallowing sound. You hear stories out here of missing people, hunters who don't come back, animals torn apart and scattered like leaves. I thought it was just that. Stories. Until the night something screamed in the trees. And I saw it. I had taken some time off work to get my head right. My buddy Mike let me stay at his family's old hunting cabin deep in the pines. A rotting little box with no Wi-Fi, no plumbing, and barely enough power to keep the lights on. The plan was to fish, maybe hike a bit, and try to forget the stress of city life. It was early October, crisp air, blood-red leaves, and silence that settled like dust. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your heartbeat. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The first night was uneventful, cold, sure, and a little lonely, but peaceful. Until around 3 a.m. when I woke up to what I thought was an animal walking outside the cabin. Not a deer, too heavy, not a bear. The footsteps circled the cabin once, twice. I held my breath, convinced I was being stalked by a coyote or something worse. And it stopped. Right outside the bedroom window. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched that window and something tapped the glass. Just once and walked away. The next day I found prints in the dirt. Huge claw feet. But not like any animal I'd seen. They looked like a bird and a goat had been smashed together. Three-toed, deep, they were even drag marks. As if a long tail had been pulled through the soil. I chalked it up to paranoia. Maybe a wild turkey or something. Spooked myself, I thought. But that night, the screaming started. Around 2:30 a.m., the woods exploded with this shrill, hellish screech. High-pitched, broken like metal being torn in half with a dying animal underneath it. It echoed off the trees. Close, distant, and close again. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the old shotgun Mike had left. Whoever made that sound, it wasn't human. Then came the thud on the roof, followed by claws screaming across the tin. I don't remember falling asleep. Maybe I passed out. Maybe I lost time. But when I woke up, the roof had claw marks. 3-pronged lashes. And a foul stench lingering in the air, like rotting meat and burnt feathers. The fourth day, the fog rolled in. Thick, white, and unnatural. I couldn't see 10 feet beyond the porch. Birds stopped singing. The only sounds was the creaking of trees and the occasional whispers of leaves moving without the wind. I stayed inside until I heard a voice. A child's voice. Chilling from the woods. "Hello, please help me. It's cold." It repeated, just faint enough to sound far, but just loud enough to be clear. It was the same voice, same pitch, same words, over and over, like a recording. I stood at the door, gun in hand, trying to fight the instinct to go and help. And then, through the fog, I saw something move. A shape. Tall, gaunt, food. It walked like it didn't know how its legs worked, like a puppet strung together wrong. Its wings. They were tattered, more bone than flesh, and it had these twisted horns that curled like branches. Its head was like a horse skull, but stretched. It stopped at the tree line and turned to face me. I swear to God it grinned. And the voice called me again, louder this time. But the mouth didn't move. I shut the door and it didn't open until sunrise. I packed my bag and left the moment daylight broke. No cell signal, of course. I tried walking back toward the road. 5 miles through dense woods. I'd taken the trail in, easy enough, but somehow I kept ending up back at the cabin. 3 times to be exact. Same clearing, same claw marks on the door, same dead silence. It was like the woods didn't want me to leave. By the time the sun started to set again, I'd given up and decided to try again in the morning. But the moment it got dark, the howling began. Not far off this time. It circled closer and closer. Then a loud crash against the front of the cabin. I saw the door buckle inward. I fired twice. Then silence. Until I heard it walking across the roof again. And this time, it stayed. For hours. I sat in the cabin, gun aimed at the ceiling, listening to it breathe. Right above me. I don't know when I passed out, but when I woke up, it was already morning. The roof had a hole in it. It tried to dig in. But it was gone. And I never saw it again. Honestly, that's actually pretty creepy. A little bit better than the ones we've heard so far, at least in my opinion. But it was creepy. And it looks like I got my little companion here is wanting food already. I'm not sure. I don't have much other thought on that. Besides the fact that the Jersey Devils, the story of the Jersey Devil is one of a very few interesting ones. And I want to say I would like to believe it's probably a kind of combination of a hybrid, because we have hybrids out there in real life. Like that, what is it? Zebra and horse? I think it is. I think something like that. But I know there's hybrids out there. There's real hybrids. Everybody's, even you guys out there probably have seen a hybrid or two. You just didn't know it. And that's what I think the Jersey Devil is. Probably just a hybrid amalgamation. Alright, on to the next story. This one's a little different. It's a little out of, I guess, our normal stories. It's a little, I guess, fiction than fact, I guess. Fiction, fact, whatever you want to go with. But the only name it's giving me is by someone named CF. Now, keep in mind, this is still folklore to some degree, I guess in other Well, of course, it's Eastern Europe as well, so that makes sense. Anyways, let's jump right in it. They say vampires are a myth, the stuff of nightmares, movie monsters with cloaks, charming smiles, and bad European accents. But what if they weren't? What if they were real? And nothing like you expected. I didn't believe in them either, until the man started watching me from the window. I moved into an old row house in Philadelphia during the fall of 2011. It was a third floor unit in a creaky, faded building from the 1800s. It still had the original crown molding and fireplace that didn't work. The landlord said it had history. And I just thought that meant charm. The first time I saw him, I thought he was a homeless guy. He was standing across the street in the shadows of a busted street lamp, just staring. Thin, pale, long coat, hands buried deep in his pockets. At first I thought he might be a squatter from one of the abandoned buildings on the block. No big deal. Cities are full of weirdos. But what unsettled me was that he didn't move. Not for 20 minutes. He just watched. Then when I closed the blinds, he was gone. He was there the next night and the night after that, always between 2 and 3 a.m. Never moving, never talking, just watching me through the window. I tried ignoring him. I stopped opening the blinds, but somehow I could feel him there, standing in the dark. Eventually I started losing sleep. I left a note on the front door of the building warning neighbors to be cautious. I called the non-emergency police line. They never found anybody. But every night he came back. And then one night, the window was open when I woke up. I never opened it. I lived 3 floors up. The lock was old, but I always double-checked it before bed. That night, it was wide open. Curtains billowing in the cold air. I shut it, locked it, moved the chair in front of it, and sat up with a baseball bat all night. Then came the screeching. Or no, scratching. My bad. Looks like I did not read that correctly. First at the window, then at the door. I called the cops again. They came. They checked the hallway, fire escape, the alley behind the building. Nothing. But the moment they left, the scratching started again. Not frantic, not loud. Just a slow scrape, scrape, scrape. Long nails across wood. My neighbor Sarah, who lived below me, started asking if I was dragging furniture around at night. I told her no. She laughed it off, but I could see it in her eyes. Then 2 days later, she went missing. No signs of forced entry, no calls, no texts, just gone. They never found her. I tried to leave, booked a hotel, packed a bag. I only made it 2 blocks before I saw him, standing on the sidewalk directly in my path. Up close he looked wrong. His face was off, too smooth, like skin stretched over bone with no muscle beneath. His eyes were black, not dark, black, like polished stone, reflective and hollow. His lips barely moved when he whispered, "You let me in once." I never let him in. I was sure of that. Until I remembered the window. The night it was open. I ran, but he didn't follow. He didn't have to. The next few nights was pure hell. Lights flickered, my phone glitched out, food rotted overnight. And then, the dreams began. I'd wake up in a sweat, convinced someone was leaning over my bed. Sometimes I saw marks on my chest, tiny pinpricks, faint bruises on my neck. I set up a camera and shut off around 2:48 a.m. every night. At 3, it turned back on. And each time, I was in a different position. Sometimes facing the window, sometimes on the floor. Once with the once with the front door open behind me. I never remember moving. Then last night, the camera captured something else. A tall figure. Thin, black coat, bending over my bed. His head tilted. It slowly turned to face the lens. It smiled at the camera. The next day I left. I don't care if I broke the lease. I burned the sage, salted the windows, moved across the state. And yet, sometimes I still wake up at that same time feeling cold. Sometimes the blinds are open, even when I close them. Sometimes when the night is just quiet enough, I hear a faint voice, like a whisper inside my skull. Forget what you know about vampires. They don't need you to bite. They don't need blood. They need something deep or something you don't notice until it's too late. A glance, an open window, a thought. And once they're in, they don't just take your blood. They take your mind. So if you see a man in the window and he doesn't blink, don't watch him back. Alright, like I said, that's a little bit different than what we are used to, since vampirism is not really my cup of tea, since it's usually out of the realms of even my own sense of believability of fact and or fiction, but it's different. I can say that. I'll just say that. It's very different. Now then, I think it's a good time to probably take a quick break right here. Yeah, I thought I had to think for a second. I think it's about time to take a quick break. Need to give me another hard one right now. So, seems like the old ticker says it's time for a brief intermission. Don't fret though, this cat ain't skipping town just yet. We're just taking a short stroll to stretch the stems and top off the tonic, if you catch my drift. So sit tight, hold on to your fedoras, and don't go knocking off just yet. We'll be back quicker than a bootlegger on the back road. More tales, more chills, and more razzle-dazzle wait on the other side of the break. Stick around, you hear? back in the saddle and ready to ride. Hope you had a time to powder your nose or pour yourself a little something jazzy. Now then, where were we at? Let's see. This looks to be like our last story of the night, too. Yep. Submitted by someone called M.E. The Last Tenant. Again, still a little anonymous, which I find it a little, what's the word, funny. It's by M.E., which sounds a little weird and ironic. Anyways, let's jump right into it. I rented the apartment because it was cheap. $525 a month for a full upstairs unit in a 2-story Victorian home near the outskirts of town. Sounded like a Craigslist scam. Oh my god, English. Which it does honestly sound like a Craigslist scam to me too, but that's just me. But the landlord met me in person, seemed normal, friendly even. Said the house had history. There's that word again, history. I swear people use that word a lot than they should because it just makes you then overthink it. The place was dusty but livable. It had a strange smell. Not quite mold, not quite wood rot, just old. But I could deal with that. What unsettled me was how quiet it was. No cars passed by. No dogs barked. Even the birds outside seemed to avoid the house. The bedroom was the worst part. It was colder than the rest of the unit, even with the heater running. And no matter how hard I tried, the closet door refused to stay shut. I'd close it before bed, only to wake up and find it cracked open. Just an inch. At first I blamed the slope of the floorboards. It's an old house, things settle. But deep down I felt something was wrong. And then came the knocking. It started on the 3rd night. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Probably need to talk to people in the studio to get me some kind of sound for that. It came from the wall behind the bathroom mirror. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Not like pipes or creaks. These had a rhythm to it. I froze. Nothing. The next night it happened again. This time from the closet. 3 knocks. I quickly checked inside. It was empty. By the end of the week, I stopped sleeping. I swear, everybody has some kind of weird thing just not wanting to sleep. On the 7th night, I had a dream. I was lying in bed, unable to move. A woman stood in the corner of the room. Long black hair, pale dress. I couldn't see her face. It was turned away. I could feel her watching me. And then she whispered, barely audible. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding. The closet door was wide open. The next morning, I went downstairs to ask the landlord if he ever had trouble with the unit. He looked uncomfortable. He finally admitted that a tenant had died there about 4 years ago. A man named Brian, quiet guy, mid-30s, kept to himself. He hung himself in the bedroom closet. No family. Just gone. The landlord claimed he didn't disclose it because it was long ago. That it didn't legally matter. It doesn't matter if it didn't legally matter. Still the fact you need to tell people when shit like that happens. I moved out that same day. I had a friend, Marcus, who thought I was being dramatic. Ghosts aren't real, he said. You just freaked yourself out. He offered to stay a few nights in the apartment before I turned the keys in. Said he'd prove nothing was wrong. He lasted 2 nights. On the 2nd morning, he showed up at my door, pale as a sheet, eyes bloodshot. I heard the knocking, he said. The closet opened on its own, and I saw something in the mirror that wasn't me. He wouldn't talk about it again, but he sent me a photo later that day. It was blurry, but you could make out a shape. Tall figure standing behind him in the bathroom mirror. 2 years later, the house was condemned. Mold, rot, water damage. The city shut it down. I went back once just to see it. I don't know why. Maybe closure? Front yard was overgrown. The windows boarded up. But as I stood outside looking up at the second floor window, I saw it. A faint silhouette of a person standing just in front of the window. Not moving. It was just watching me. If you ever rent out a place that's too good to be true and the landlord says it has history or has charm to it, ask what kind. Honestly, that gave me chills. That actually gave me chills down my spine because I've heard landlords say that before, and I've always thought it was a little iffy. But of course, I've not experienced something like that before, so probably a little too good to be true. Probably a little just over dramatic. But hey, what's my little companion doing over there? Stay away from the cords. You know better. Sorry about that. Looks like the people in the studios let a little friend in. Anyways, that was the last story of tonight. And let me make sure I'm not overlooking those. Alright, yep. So, the curtains fall on another evening of whispers in the dark and tales not meant for daylight. Thanks for tapping in, Slick. Been the bee's knees as always. We'll be back before you know it with more stories that'll make your skin crawl and your curiosity dance. Keep your secrets close and your radio closer. Good night, my friends. And good